We are regularly confronted with worst-case scenarios, whether it's gloomy forecasts about the state of the climate, democracy, or the economy. But what if we were to take a totally different approach? Today we're going to look at how to use a best-case scenario in life. After all, what's the worst that could happen? Welcome to House of the Making. If you're new to this channel, here we explore how to live better by looking to the future and using our time more positively and purposefully. So today we're going to talk about three things. The first is scenarios. The second are the importance of expectations. And the third is going to be an exercise to build our own best case scenario. So let's get started. When we talk about how the future might look, we often picture and paint scenarios. These can range from disastrous to delightful, from faintly possible to highly probable. The most likely scenario is the one we tend to plan for. The worst case scenario is the one we plan against ever happening, if at all possible. Now, worst case scenarios do have an important role to play. They can help us to prudently prepare for things that would be pretty catastrophic. But if we're not careful, catastrophizing can easily become our go-to view of the world and everyday life, and even become self-fulfilling. And then there's the best case scenario. Now, these tend to get a bit overlooked as they're sometimes just dismissed as simply wishful thinking. But as soon as we hold in mind a dominant picture of what we believe the future might look like, and to start making preparations for that future, the more likely that future is of actually coming into being. We are, in a sense, building that image of the future into existence. So on this basis alone, our choice of scenario and our associated expectations are really quite important. And research suggests that our expectations matter. Let's just rewind back in time a little bit to the 1960s to find out why. In 1968, Rosenthal and Jacobson conducted a famous study that examined teachers' expectations of their students. Teachers in a Californian elementary school were told at the start of a school year that roughly 1 in 5 pupils were intellectual bloomers and academically more gifted than their classmates. This was not necessarily correct. These pupils had been selected completely at random. With expectations set, the authors tracked educational attainment, and their findings suggested that teacher expectations had positively uplifted the IQ of those intellectual bloomers. This came to be known as the Pygmalion effect, after the Greek myth in which a sculptor falls in love with a statue that he has carved. This study and its findings was not without its critics, but does it point to something more intuitive and mundane going on when we think about and set expectations? Well, if we pump prime our minds to be on the lookout for opportunities and threats relating to our best case scenario, we'll be more likely to spot them. And the more often we spot them, the more likely we are to act on them. And our expectations that our best case scenario will actually happen will start to rise. Now, this doesn't mean that by sheer force of imagination we will conjure things out of thin air with positive thinking. Rather, think of our best case scenario as a way to pump prime serendipity and increase the surface area of fortune for our most desirable outcome. So how could we go about creating our own best case scenario? The science fiction author J.D. Moyer wrote a blog about his approach to creating a best case scenario, which I quite like, and we'll look at how successful he found his method to be in just a moment. Here is a 4-point approach that you can take which incorporates some of his experiences. Number 1, write it down. As with most thinking in life, we make it real when we commit it to paper. Writing down our best case scenario is a surefire way to help organise and clarify our thoughts. Number 2, choose an area of life to focus on. It's worth bearing in mind that the purpose of this exercise is to draw up something that is relevant to us personally, something that is as specific as possible so we can go beyond an outline to really picture the scenario. Number 3, choose a time horizon. Is the best case scenario going to be for a client meeting next week, for our health and wellness next year, or finances 10 years from now? And number 4, avoid goals and don't forget to make it plausible. Moyer notes that he tries to avoid goal setting or highly unlikely events, but rather focuses on outcomes that are highly optimistic but still plausible. So to get the most value from this exercise, we should try to ground our scenario in a reality that doesn't require fabulous wealth or talent to simply drop out of the sky. As a counterpoint to futures that loom with gloom, taking the very best scenario is a deeply appealing idea. But more important still, if it becomes our picture of what the future could look like, and the one that we hold in mind above others, is it more likely to come into being? Moyers seems to think so. He notes in a review of one of his earlier exercises, about 70% of my best case scenarios had materialised, so why not try it? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? If you like this video, then I think you'll enjoy this one, which explores why time feels so weird right now and what that means for all of us. Thanks for watching. If you aren't already, hit the subscribe button and I'll see you over at the next video.